Welcome to Armenia. Armenia is the oldest country with direct continuity, and this past can be felt in every corner of the land. A country where belief came early, in gods, in kings, in the cross, and in survival. Join us today as we journey through a land that doesn't just exist, but remembers. Along dizzying gorges and deep valleys, we'll discover the beauty of this jewel. Armenia was the first country in the world to adopt Christianity as its state religion, a legacy that's still written in stone today. In churches and monasteries scattered across the entire country, on narrow mountaintops, in quiet valleys, and amid the rhythm of major cities. In Etchmiadzin stands a special testament to this history, the oldest cathedral in the world. Built around the year 301 AD, it's considered the very first officially constructed Christian cathedral, a place where faith hasn't just been preached, but lived for nearly 2 millennia. For centuries, Armenia lay between the powers of Rome and Persia, Byzantium and the Arab empires, the Mongols, Ottomans and Russians. Empires came and vanished, but the language, church and identity remained. Quiet, steadfast and unbending. A visible symbol of this culture are the intricately carved crossstones, the kachkas. They're considered unique in the world and can be found everywhere, in old cemeteries, on cliff faces, at monasteries and sacred sites, like prayers in stone that outlast wind and time. The cuisine also tells a story of tradition. Armenia is particularly known for its breads, the thin, soft lavash and the herb-filled jingalov hats, deeply rooted staples of daily life in the country. We begin our journey today in central Armenia, the spiritual and political heart of the country, a landscape where early Christianity, ancient kingdoms, and dramatic mountain scenery converge in the tightest of spaces. We'll circle around the capital before taking a closer look at Yerevan itself. Starting with Geghard Monastery, this place doesn't look built, but rather born from the rock. Nestled in the steep walls of the Azat Gorge, the complex merges almost imperceptibly with the mountain from which it was carved. A sacred site arose here as early as the 4th century, but the monastery took its present form in the Middle Ages, when Armenian monks began carving churches directly into the massive basalt. The name Geghard means spear, an allusion to the holy lance that legend says wounded Christ and was supposedly kept here for centuries. Inside, there's an almost otherworldly acoustics. The crosses, ornaments, and burial chambers carved in stone tell of a faith that has endured through time. On the road to the monastery, a path leads past the Symphony of Stones, a work of art created not by humans, but by patience. Along the Gani Gorge stand thousands of hexagonal basalt columns, packed tightly together, so regular it's as if an architect designed them. In truth, they're the result of ancient volcanic eruptions and slow cooling. Nature in geometric perfection. Even in ancient times, people used this natural shelter. Caravans passed through here, soldiers sought cover, hermits sought silence. The gorge was never a centre of power, but rather a borderland, a transition, a quiet witness to history. A cathedral without a roof. The Gani temple stands like a stranger in Armenia, and that's exactly what it is. It's the country's only surviving pagan temple, built in the 1st century AD in honor of the sun god, Mir. Its architecture strictly follows Roman models: columns, triangular pediments, and clear symmetry. When Armenia declared Christianity its state religion in 301, nearly all pagan sites were destroyed. Ghani survived, probably also because it was used as a summer residence by the royal family. Centuries later, it collapsed in an earthquake and was faithfully reconstructed in Soviet times. From the temple platform, the view opens across the Azat Valley, vast, rugged, and still. The contrast between the austere, bright architecture and the wild landscape feels almost surreal. Khor Virap is small, unassuming, and yet one of Armenia's most significant places. The monastery sits near the Turkish border, on flat land, with an unobstructed view of the biblical Mount Ararat. The name means deep dungeon. Here, Gregory the Illuminator was imprisoned in an underground pit for 13 years because he refused to renounce Christianity. Later, he converted the Armenian king, making Armenia the world's first Christian state. The small chapel above the dungeon appears simple, almost modest, but the significance of this place is enormous. Underground began a religious transformation that still shapes the country today, which is why enthusiasts from around the world still come here year-round. Etchmiadzin, further north, is considered the spiritual centre of the Armenian Church, comparable to the Vatican for Catholicism. The name means place where the only begotten descended, because according to legend, Christ appeared here to Gregory the Illuminator in a dream and showed him the site for the first Christian-built cathedral. Mind you, it's now the oldest still existing cathedral in the world. The present church dates back in its core to the 4th century and has been expanded repeatedly. Etchmiadzin is not just a religious site, but also a cultural archive of Armenia. Just a few kilometres away lie the ruins of Zvartnots, a monumental cathedral from the 7th century. Once an architectural marvel, it collapsed in an earthquake. Today, only columns and foundations remain, but even these hint at how bold this structure must have been. Together, Etchmiadzin and Zvartnots tell of Armenia's early Christianity, of awakening, greatness, and the fragility of even the mightiest visions. The Kasak Gorge is a quiet, deeply cut valley where two of Armenia's most beautiful monasteries face each other, Hovhanavank and Sagmosavank. Hovhanavank was built on the ruins of a pagan temple and later expanded into an important spiritual centre. Its dark walls and simple domes appear austere, almost ascetic. Sagmosavank, on the opposite side, is more open and light-filled. These monasteries were not just places of prayer, but also centres of knowledge. Here, manuscripts were copied, chronicles written, language preserved. Ambird sits high on the slopes of Aragats, Armenia's highest mountain. The name means fortress in the clouds, and rarely has a name been more fitting. At over 2,000 metres elevation, walls and towers rise above a barren, windswept landscape. Its purpose was defence, and its location was strategically perfect. Steep slopes on 3 sides, wide views in all directions. Today, Ambird is a ruin, but not an empty one. The wind whistles through window openings, clouds drift low past, and the silence feels almost absolute. Now we're heading to the capital, to Yerevan. a city that reveals itself slowly. It stands there, open, wide, sun-drenched. It's one of the world's oldest continuously inhabited cities. And yet it doesn't feel like a museum, but rather like a place in constant dialogue between past and present. At the heart of the city lies Republic Square, built from pink tuff-stone that gives Yerevan its warm, almost golden hue. By day, the square is vast and dignified. In the evening, illuminated fountains transform it into a stage of water and music. From here, the city unfolds in all directions. The monumental cascade rises like a stone stairway to heaven. Steps, terraces, and modern artworks lead upward, while with each level the view opens wider across the city's rooftops, all the way to Ararat, which on clear days seems to hover above everything. At the top stands Mother Armenia, a massive statue in Victory Park, symbol of protection, strength, and the country's difficult history. Knowledge and memory reside in the Matanadaran, one of the world's most significant manuscript archives. Thousands of centuries-old manuscripts tell of science, religion, and the Armenian language, rescued from times of war and displacement. At the vernissage market, carpets, jewellery, and Soviet relics change hands, an open museum of everyday life. In the opera area, however, Yerevan shows its elegant side: wide boulevards, cafes, fountains, and the opera house as the cultural centre. Above it all rests Erebuni, a fortress older than Rome. It reminds us that Yerevan didn't grow like other cities, but was founded as a bastion, as a power point, as a beginning. Yerevan is not a place of perfect facades. It's a city of layers, ancient, wounded, proud, and alive. A capital that doesn't hide its history, but wears it, visible in stone, voices, and dust. Now we're heading to northern Armenia. This region is rougher, more primal, and quieter than the country's centre. Dense forests, deep gorges, and remote monasteries define this region, where faith and landscape have been intertwined for centuries. Dilijan lies like a forgotten promise among forested hills. The city is often called Armenia's green lung, surrounded by one of the country's most biodiverse forests. Even in Soviet times, Dilijan was a resort for artists, scientists, and politicians seeking respite. Today, the city seems more modest but charismatic. Dilijan National Park begins almost at the city's edge. Hiking trails lead to hidden monasteries, quiet lakes, and viewpoints from which the endless green spreads like a carpet. Particularly the monasteries of Hagatsin and Goshavank, deep in the forest, seem more discovered than visited. Even further north, Hagpat and Sanahin face each other, separated by a deep gorge, yet spiritually connected. Both monastic complexes were among the most important religious and scientific centres of medieval Armenia. Hagpat seems to have grown from the rock. Dark stone, heavy walls, simple forms. Fog often drifts through the courtyard, as if trying to conceal time itself. Here, monks worked as scholars, copied manuscripts, and taught theology, astronomy, and philosophy. Sanahin, on the other hand, lies more openly, more expansively, with a view of the Debed Valley. Here too, intricately carved crossstones, kachkars, tell of faith and memory. The Church of Odzun stands elevated above the valley, solitary and dignified. It dates from the 6th century and is among Armenia's oldest surviving churches. Its reddish stone stands out gently against the green surroundings. Its construction appears austere, almost geometric. Odzun was once an important religious centre. Legend says that relics of John the Baptist rest here. True or not, the place radiates a deep tranquility. Gyumri in the northwest is Armenia's second city, and perhaps its most human. Marked by severe earthquakes, especially in 1988, it bears scars that are visible to this day. Entire neighborhoods had to be rebuilt, others remained as ruins. But Gyumri is not broken. The city has its own soul, humorous, proud, stubborn. Black tuff-stone characterizes many buildings, giving them both weight and elegance. Artists, craftspeople, and musicians have created a vibrant scene here. Everywhere you encounter statues, monuments, and small memorials honoring poets, craftspeople, and everyday scenes of life. Particularly famous is the Iron Fountain, a playful metal fountain whose quirky design reflects the city's humour and creative soul. The streets seem wider, more open than in Yerevan, the pace slower. Gyumri stands for resilience, for the ability to move forward after loss. We continue to the east. Here Armenia is vast, cool, and flooded with light. The highland around Lake Sevan feels like its own continent, carried by sky, water, and wind. Lake Sevan is no ordinary lake. It's an inland sea of fresh water, situated at nearly 1,900 meters elevation, one of the world's highest large lakes. Its water shimmers silver, turquoise, or deep blue depending on the light, and its horizon seems to dissolve into the sky. High above the water sits Savanavank, a monastery from the 9th century. It once stood on a remote island, surrounded by water and silence. Only in Soviet times did the water level drop, turning the island into a peninsula. The dark churches of volcanic stone still stand in the wind, simple and unbending, as if they've refused time itself.
Sevan National Park protects not just the water, but also rare bird species, highland plants, and vast shoreline landscapes. Sevan is not a place to pass through, it's a place to become still. Yerevan lies off the beaten path, quiet, almost overlooked on the western shore of the lake, and that's precisely what makes it so impressive. The small monastic ensemble from the 9th to 12th centuries clings to a rocky ledge above Lake Sevan, far from traffic noise and crowds. The buildings are simple, built of dark stone, without pomp, without staging. A church, a chapel, a gavit. Nothing more is needed. The real wealth lies in the view. Below, Lake Sevan spreads out like a liquid plain of light. Above, the sky stretches in cold blue. Many travellers drive past this place. Those who stop often stay longer than planned. Finally, our journey takes us to southern Armenia, the rough edge of the country, fissured, wind-open, and full of traces of ancient caravan routes. Here, ancient culture, deep gorges, and lonely monasteries meet like layers of a forgotten world. Armenia sits inconspicuously in a dry valley of red rock and dusty slopes. But beneath this quiet landscape hides one of humanity's most significant archaeological sites. In the Armenia 1 cave, researchers discovered the world's oldest known wine press, over 6,000 years old, complete with grape seeds, fermentation vats, and drinking vessels. This makes Armenia one of the cradles of winemaking. Even today, vineyards mark the slopes, and small family wineries continue a tradition older than any empire in this region. In barrels and bottles age wines, some of them over 100 years old. The cave itself lies hidden in a rock face, cool and dark, almost inconspicuous. But it tells of a time when people here didn't just survive, but were already forming culture, with rituals, crafts, and pleasure. Armenia thus connects something rare,
archaic past and living present. A village that doesn't impress through size, but through depth, and through the quiet certainty that part of human history began here. Right next door, Yerevan appears suddenly, wedged between steep red rock walls, as if someone placed a monastery inside a stone cathedral. The path there leads through a narrow gorge. The monastery dates from the 13th century and was once the region's religious and cultural centre. Particularly famous is the two-storey church of Serb Astvatsatsin, with its narrow external staircase, an architectural daring venture in stone. Yerevan was closely connected with the princes of Sunik and housed important scholars and artists, including the famous architect and sculptor Momik. His delicate reliefs and cross stones seem almost impossibly precise for a time without modern tools.
Slightly east of Yerevan lies Gyumri, high in the mountains, surrounded by dense forests and cool air. The city has been known as a spa resort since Soviet times, famous for its mineral water, which is drunk throughout the country. But its true landmark is the waterfall. It plunges over several stages into a deep gorge, white and loud, like an open tear in the landscape. In spring it swells, in autumn it becomes quieter, but never insignificant. Around Gyumri, hiking trails, old sanatoriums and viewpoints wind through the hills. Cool nights, clear water, wide sky. Even further south lies Shaki Waterfall, one of Armenia's most powerful. Without warning, the water bursts from a dark gorge and plunges in freefall into the depths, accompanied by thundering echo. Zorat's Karer is older than Stonehenge. Over 7,000 years old, this enigmatic stone arrangement sits on a windy plateau, far from any city. Hundreds of basalt blocks stand in circles and lines, many with round holes, presumably astronomical markers. Some call the place Armenian Stonehenge. To this day, it's not fully clear whether an observatory, temple or burial site stood here. Only this is certain. People were already observing the stars here when Europe was still in the Stone Age. Just a few kilometres from the town of Gorges lies Old Konzoresk, a cave village inhabited until the 20th century. People lived here in houses carved into the rock, connected by paths and wooden ladders. Today, a long suspension bridge crosses the gorge, swaying, open, impressive. Beneath your feet lies the abandoned village with ancient caves, silent as frozen life. Tatev, further south, is no ordinary monastery. It sits on the edge of a gigantic gorge at 1,600 meters elevation. In the Middle Ages, Tatev was one of Armenia's most important universities, a center for philosophy, science and theology. Thousands of students studied here, while beneath them the Vorotan River cut through the depths. Today you reach Tatev via the world's longest continuous cable car, Wings of Tatev. You glide silently over the void, over forests, rocks and emptiness. Meghri lies in the far south, near the Iranian border. Palm-like trees, warm air, and pomegranate gardens give the city an almost oriental feeling. The city is small,
quiet, sun-scorched, and forms the perfect contrast to dry Armenia, and thus a quiet, completing conclusion to Armenia. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video. If so, please leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss any more videos. Until next time,